Single origins are overrated. 2 weeks in a row, rage baiting us? Lance, have you lost your mind? When people first get into coffee, when they jump down that rabbit hole, just like Alice did in the wonderland of Lewis Carroll's world, they start to get this obsession with single origins. They walk into a shop, oh, you have single origin espresso, SOEs, that's what I need. Well, we have this great blend that's, no, I don't want to hear that. I want single origin. But it's interesting once you actually think about different coffees from different origins and the fact that you're already drinking blends. When you get your coffee and you see the name on it, Kenya something like Karagoto or whatever, that's actually named after the washing station. The washing station takes coffees from multiple farmers who give their coffees in, they blend it all up, wash it, bada bing bada boom, you have coffee from multiple different farms in a certain area in Kenya. And I love Kenya, so it's my favorite. This is SL28 tattooed on my arm. But it is technically a blend, and a lot of Ethiopia coffees are blends. That's why they call it heirloom, because it's a blend of so many varieties. Oftentimes, you'll get a Castillo Catora blend. You get that in a lot of Central and South American coffees, where they're blending multiple varieties. The reason I'm doing this video is I was asked the question, what is the place of blends in specialty coffee? So specialty coffee is technically coffee that scores over an 80 on a scale of 0 to 100. Without getting too far into it, it accounts for about 6% of all the world's coffee. Now, when we look at coffee as a full spectrum, the majority of it tends to be what's called commodity coffee, which is essentially coffee that is sold at the price set by Wall Street. Now, this is not a price point that is sustainable for farmers to really live on unless they're able to sell a ton of coffee where they have some machines that can do a lot of the harvesting like in Brazil so that they don't have to pay as much labor, and then maybe it's a more sustainable type of situation. But in the vast majority of cases, it's simply not a realistic situation. So there are a lot of people who have moved to specialty where the idea, the unadulterated idea, of course it's bastardized, is to pay a premium on coffees that are a higher quality, that is a more sustainable price, a more sustainable wage for farmers to live on. And it's not a perfect system. In fact, it's far from it. There's still lots of exploitation in all areas of coffee. But without getting too far into that, in specialty coffee, you're paying a premium price for higher quality coffee that has been focused on a bit more. So in the specialty sector, blends are something that a lot of people tend to eschew. Coffee professionals who are competing at the highest level have been recently creating their own blends with high quality coffees. They have something new, unique, the flavors are playing off of one another, and they're able to tailor the experience in a more intimate way, in a more personal way. What a lot of people don't think about are the following things to take into consideration when we're looking at blends and their place in specialty coffee. Consistency is a necessity. You must have something that the majority of coffee consumers can count on to be reliable day in and day out. Probably all of you watching this video are super nerdy, and you probably are only drinking these like top tier coffees, and that's great. But the majority of business and cafes tend to be espresso based beverages, and they want something that is consistent every day without having something outside of their regular routine. The only real way to do that is with blends. If you commit to a single farm and think, okay, this farm's gonna give me the same coffee every year, well, first off, no it won't. Every year it is gonna change slightly. Second off, most countries only have one harvest a year. Colombia does have 3 in some parts, but in reality, if you want some sort of Ethiopia or Kenya, or you want some sort of Peru or something along those lines, you're not getting those 3 harvests a year. You have wonderful farmers out in Kenya, and none of them are getting a standout coffee. Now, that's not to say that's an excuse to not do it for other farmers, and I think for the most part, we should be shedding lights on farmers. And even with blends, we should be shedding lights on the farmers that create that blend. But whenever we have the availability to make a blend, we have a lot of positives that come into play. Green doesn't age very well. So unless you're freezing your green, which is a big footprint in order to run freezers that can hold green for a long time, you're gonna have to kind of beat the clock with the green so it doesn't lose its quality as it's sitting around. Blends are a great option to put in maybe an aged green with another green that's nice in order to play off of their strengths, and you can bring something new to the table, therefore not wasting some green. When you're making blends, you can make it based off of a flavor profile. I need a blend so I can sell to cafes so they can have consistency, and I want it to taste like milk chocolate, cherry, and walnut. And then when you're cupping your coffees for consideration for your single origin options or whatever, you may taste one that tastes like it could be a good blend component. So you put that to the side and you say, this could be a great replacement for coffee A in my 2-bean blend. We can test it inside the blend with the other coffee we still have a lot of. We can see if it replaces it. There are a lot of roasteries that are picking up on this idea of committing to a single producer or multiple producers where they buy their lots year in and year out, regardless of the quality. Now, this is something I do hope more people pick up on because there are a lot of things out of a producer's control. They could have had frostbite damage to their plants during the winter because it was a cold winter, or it could be extremely hot. You could have some wilting issues or something along those lines. You could have a bug infestation or something that is just messing with the crop and the points go down and it's not as high quality of a coffee. It's going to be harder for them to sell it, but if you're committed to a producer and you're wanting to buy it regardless, that may not be a great option to serve as a single origin. And it may not be a great thing to reflect on to the producer if people get it and they're let down by a certain year's crop. Oh, this farm's no longer good. You could find a way to put it into a blend so that you're not wasting that coffee and you still can buy at a higher price this farm that you're in a relationship with year in and year out. You could have two coffees that both have really great characteristics, but they may not taste that great on their own. When you put them together, they play off of each other's strengths and they can mute each other's weaknesses and make something new and refreshing. There's something that everyone should definitely be trying out, especially because they tend to be at a more reasonable price point with a lot of roasteries. But that brings me to a point that I really want to make sure is heard loud and clear. As much of a proponent of blends as I am, it should be noted that they can also be horribly, horribly abused, and I believe they are with the majority of roasters that are using them. Now, this is more so speculation from my side, but I think it's a PSA that needs to be heard. What you normally see is cafes have their blends, which tend to be a lot cheaper, and they have a few single origin options that are more expensive. Blends tend to be the best sellers, especially with wholesale roasters, because cafes want something consistent. So the majority of the green they're buying are these blends. They may start with good intentions, but over time, people start looking at margins and they think, well, it's a blend anyway. I don't need to source this high quality of coffee. So I'm gonna buy $2 a pound or $4 or $5 a kilo coffee, and I'm gonna make my blends based off of that. We're gonna have a higher margin, even though it's a cheaper coffee, because, well, it's a blend. It doesn't matter. We're kind of putting two coffees together anyway. So a lot of places are not taking seriously these blends and they're adding lower cost coffee into them, and that's the majority of what their money is going to. So instead of focusing on buying higher quality coffees with more of a premium price in order to spread equity down the supply chain, they're kind of focusing on that margin. And they're getting away calling themselves kind of specialty and kind of sustainable and all of these things because they showcase these higher priced coffees. I find that to be a bit duplicitous and not really authentic. There should be some caution exercised when we're talking about blends and their place in specialty. I think that when used properly, they have an incredible place, as evidenced by people using them in the world stage, as evidenced by people who are actually committing to farmers and they find places for the coffees even if the crop is not scoring as highly a certain year where it may not stand up well as a single origin. But there's also loads of abuse with it where people are taking the cheapest coffees possible, blending them together because, hey, it's a blend, it doesn't matter. We can stand behind the laurels of our single origins, which maybe account for 20% of our sales. But that's okay because that's what we kind of post on social media. Because, you know, blends don't have this label as being exciting. One of the more interesting coffees I've had this year was the unicorn blend from the Naughty Dog out in the Czech Republic. It was very interesting. They had a really cool kind of blend going on in there that you would not be able to get from a single coffee. They both brought very specific attributes to the final cup. My point with this video is not necessarily to go on a polemic against people that might be abusing the system. It's not to go on a polemic of people who are obsessed with single origins. I drink 99.9% single origins. It is to open your eyes to the necessity of blends and their part in the specialty world, whether it's for cafe consistency or whether it's for salvaging coffees that might otherwise be underperforming on their own or might otherwise be kind of wasted, because waste is still a massive thing in the coffee sector. There are some roasters that are doing really cool things with their blends who are actually taking this to a level where they're refusing to pay below a certain point because they want to ensure that they are again, spreading that equity along the supply chain. And these roasters will buy coffees that could stand up on their own, and that's what they're making their blends out of. And they're just taking a hit on the margin in order to provide blends at a cheaper price point so it's more accessible. And for those, I definitely applaud. I think that is a really cool thing that should definitely be kind of observed more often. Looking at blends as something that you can still be proud of and stand behind, as opposed to something off on the side that you're using cheap coffee for and just, it's being thrown into milk anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But anyway, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Are you someone that's a single origin only type person and you're curious now to kind of try some blends from maybe more established roasters who really focus on doing blends? Are you someone that already drinks blends and this kind of edifies your experience? Are you someone who did not realize that single origin doesn't mean single lot? In fact, it literally just means the same country. So technically, there are lots of blends out there that I know of that are technically single origins in the same way that a Kenya is. Typically nowadays, you have a blend of 4 different varieties in Kenya: SL28 and SL34, Rubiru, and Bation. I know of people that have blends where it's 2 Ethiopias or 2 Colombias or 2 Guatemalas, and technically those are single origins, but they're shown as blends. So when we actually look at the definition of these words, things get a little bit more blurry. So anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts down below. What do you think about this? What do you think about these blends? I know that there are going to be people disagreeing on the economic side of it, and I'm not here to be an economic theorist, not trying to be. I just wanted to kind of put out what's going on in the world of specialty coffee, in the world of coffee in general, for you to kind of consider and to make your own conclusions on about single origins and blends. Call to action. Try out a blend. Look at a specialty roaster near you. Look at a roaster near you that actually puts thought and effort into their blends. That's not just the leftover coffee or the cheap little dud coffees that they can make a lot of profit on. See if you enjoy it. If you don't, okay, cool. That doesn't mean all blends are poor. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content at all, hit the like and subscribe, share the video, do all that stuff, the baggy stuff. But that's it for me today. I hope that you brew something tasty, and cheers.